Hello and welcome to update number 4, I do believe. Yep, this is the 4th video already. Man, it comes fast. I apologize, by the way, for the flicker. Right now, it looks like, to me, the Battle Magic title is just on the top here, but for the video, for some reason, it's recording where it's like flashing all over the screen, and it's really obnoxious. I don't know why my video recorder does that, my screen recorder. It's really frustrating, but means I'll have to look into something new and different later on, or sooner rather than later. Anyway, let's see. So last Friday, I said the goals for Monday were to have a basic spell menu focusing on exort spells, as well as having the player collide with the walls. Well, I'm sorry to say that I failed on that first part. I do not have a spell menu at all. No spells, nothing to cast, I'm sorry. That's all there really is to say about that. I'll show you what I've done so far in that regard, but at the moment in the end game there's nothing to be done. So I failed that goal. The other goal was to have the player collide with the walls, and I'm happy to say that it does work. You no longer go sailing through the walls. And actually, I got a very elegant, well, maybe not very elegant, but relatively elegant solution. In that it slides along the walls as far as possible, always inching closer until they basically can't move along that, can't reach it anymore. It's always trying, but it slides along the wall like this, and that was a really nice feature I wasn't totally expecting to get, but I'm really glad that it managed to work out. It makes sense for such a simple game like what I have. It doesn't need, it should be able to have something simple and easy like this. So I'm very happy that I managed to get that. And in fact, I'd be really happy to show you the code for it. Again, I apologize if there's no if you're not a programmer or not interested in programming code, but I really like the solution I came up with. So anyway, this is where the code checks to see the player. It basically it determines where the player is trying to move with player center and distance, and if it's too small of a distance it doesn't bother trying to move, but if the distance is great enough from where you right clicked and where the player is at the moment, it'll try to move the player in that direction based on it's basically some trigonometry to determine how fast and which along the X and along the Y to move you. And then after all the moving, it actually goes over to a for loop for each and every rectangle that is the yellow boundary that you saw in game. Let's see if where'd it go? This one. All these yellow boundaries. These are all separate rectangles, and the player itself is actually a rectangle. The circle here. There's a little bounding rectangle. In fact, it's a square, and so that way it's really easy to test to see when one rectangle intersects another. It's a really simple test. It's already built into the classes, so I don't even have to do anything with that. I just test to see if they do intersect. If one boundary intersects with another player, then it says, alright, let's move the player back along the X in the way it came, and then let's see if it's still intersecting. If it is, then move the player along the X instead and reset the Y. The reason that this works is that in my game there's only two different directions that the boundaries move. It's either along the horizontal way, like this, or it's going to be vertical, like these are. Which means if you're intersecting with a boundary, it means you're either intersecting with a horizontal one or a vertical one. And so as the player approaches and finally does try to intersect with this boundary, the game tries to move it along the Y, and it says you're intersecting, so let's move you back along the X. Moves you back a little bit, like if we're coming in from this direction, like that. And so it's like, alright, let's move you back this way, and you're still colliding. Alright, so we know it's not a vertical bar, because if that were true, you would no longer be colliding. Therefore, let's move you along the X and move you back along the Y, thus putting you out here. Perfect. And it works the same for this Y. I know that was described horribly, but hopefully if you were interested you understand, or if not you could let me know and I will say write up a more elegant description. I just like the fact that it's just a simple if statement and there's only two translate statements, and that's it. That's all it needs to do in order to move you away from the boundaries enough, and it provides that sliding motion that I mentioned earlier. All in all, I'm really happy with that. And moving on, I'll show you the spell menu I got so far. I just actually did this today. It's been one of the most stressful weeks for me this past week. This weekend was no exception. It was kind of a culmination of everything. And so I just didn't. I know one game a month, you make games, not excuses. But in this case, this is what I went through last week was definitely due an excuse. So anywho, moving on. This is what I did just today. I created up a quick paint mock-up of a drawing I did of how I kind of want spells to work. So there's a lot going on here for sure, a lot more than what you just saw right here. And to explain it all lightly, basically this is your player here, still in the center, the gray little circle, and these little orange circles down here, these are what I'm calling bubbles, or basically what you are casting with your spells. In my game there are 20 unique spells, each a combination of Q, W, E, and R. 3 of those letters make up one spell, so E 3 times makes up the Fire Strike spell, and EE and an R makes Armor Piercing, EEQ makes Mana Burn, and EEW makes Melting Armor. And so in this case, the player has casted 2 E buttons so far. This makes, and E is the orange color diamond, so E produced 2 little circles that are actually going to spin around the player when it's actually in game. And that lets you know that you casted 2 E's so far, and if you want to actually cast a complete spell, you have to type in one final letter to get to a spell. And in this case, this is where the spell menu comes in, because I don't expect players to have all 20 spells memorized in their combinations, so the spell menu is going to help mitigate some of that knowledge. All you really need to know is that Q is Quas, and that's generally restoring spells. W is Wex for status spells, usually stunning. I'm trying to keep it easy. E is exort for damage spells, and R is rem for armor spells. And in this case, 2E means you're probably picking a damage spell. That's why each of these spells listed here actually deal damage. Like you have Mana Burn, which is going to do damage based on the enemy's mana. Melting Armor, which deals damage and destroys some of the enemy's armor. Fire Strike, which is just a pure flat damage spell. And Armor Piercing, which does damage and ignores some of the enemy's armor. And the way you're going to cast a spell, you type in 3 letters, 3 unique characters, and then you will push, and then once you type in a third one, it'll pop up with a nicer looking, more descriptive version of this, of one of these. Like for instance, if you pushed E 3 times, it would pop up with Fire Strike, and a little short description box showing basically how much damage it's going to do, how much its mana cost is, how long it'll take to recharge, and how the spell works in general. And that'll be for another time. Right now, just getting this menu to pop up in itself is going to take some effort. See, before I get too far along, so right now what I've got in game in the code, because I would be showing you this game if it's showing you this in game if it were actually working, but it's not right now. All I have are each of these bubbles created, these little circles that will be different colors. I have these diamonds created, and that's about it. It's actually going to take quite a bit of code in order to make sure, like, to get the positions for all the text, all the frames, all of the positions of everything, and so on and so forth. But that's my job. It's not your job. Your job is to wait for the game and get excited about it, hopefully. So that's basically what's been going on the past 3 days. Hopefully towards next week, what I want to get done is I want to actually get the spell menu done, and then add some triggers in the game, so that way this text box down here, this Welcome to Battle Magic text box, will disappear, and have other ones appear to tell you other interesting facts like how to cast spells, which is going to be really imperative for a tutorial. As that's 2 so far. The third one, I want to draw a basic user interface at the bottom. I completely forgot about the user interface for a while, so I'm actually going to have to move this text box up to the top, probably top of the screen, or to the side, or somewhere else. I can't be at the bottom anymore. The bottom's going to be used up for the user interface right now, soon. And other than that, bonus points, if I get all of that done, that huge, seems like a huge workload, but if I manage to get all of that done, I would like to finish all the walls for the tutorial. That's kind of just a fun thing. I already have all the walls mapped out. It's just a matter of typing the programming code, which So it won't take that long. It'll feel really accomplishing and it'll look nice. That way there's no more walls that just end into oblivion like this. They'll actually be all closed up. It'll help me feel more better about the game so far. I want to organize the code a little bit because right now it's a big chunk of it's all just in one class file, and it's already been kind of split up. I just haven't made a class for it yet. I've been programming more than worrying about how to organize it, which is working for the right now, but it's getting a little too cluttered, so I want to declutter that. And finally, at the last bonus point, create the Fire Strike spell, so that way you can actually cast it, it'll do damage, and it'll have a little animation of its own. And that's it. Thank you all for watching. I really appreciate it. Tune in Friday to see what I get done and what I don't get done. Hopefully I get done more than I did this time, though. Thanks.